Although video game narratives are advancing faster than whatever petri dish life form is about to spring forth and audition for the next reality TV show, there are a laundry list of differences between them and more established story-based art forms such as film or the written word. Many games are so epic in scope or focused on gameplay alone that there ends up being a wealth of oversights missed by the developers when tying everything up. Regardless, it remains that for each title it takes its time securing every possible story thread into a perfectly woven narrative tabard. Here's looking at you, Metal Gear Solid 4. There are many that as soon as you start ruminating on how things stand after the credits have rolled, it all starts to come apart. I'm Scott from WhatCulture.com, and these are 8 gaming heroes you didn't realize probably died horrible deaths. Number 8, Jack Marsden, Red Dead Redemption. It's totally a noble pursuit, the whole avenging my father's killer routine, and it's one done the utmost justice in Red Dead's true final mission, which saw you tracking down the double-crossing Edgar Ross and dumping a full revolver chamber into him before watching his blimp-like corpse float off down the river. Hang on a minute though. Jack Marsden is definitely not cut from the same cloth/hardened leather as his father. Whilst you can make a case for not knowing what Jack has been up to in between his father being riddled with bullets and him turning up at the subsequent gravesite, it's been a measly 3 years of preparation for little Jack, and chances are, if he wasn't doing his best to dodge a wandering cougar, he'd have been taking care of his mother anyway. Chances are, following the final confrontation, Jack has set about roaming the lands once again, doing the whole cowboy thing with no real training, and wrangling up a few horses or perhaps attempting to take on a bounty contract against middle-aged outlaws who have been doing this thing for thrice his lifetime. Needless to say, if the local wildlife didn't have his shins off, a particularly patchouli bandit could take him out from a mile away. Number 7, Solaire of Astera, Dark Souls. The tale of Mr. Solaire is a resoundingly dour one, regardless of the various ways his story arc can pan out. He pops up a handful of times in From Software's agonizingly hard series to lend not just a hand in battle, but a few lines of dialogue that let you in on the secret of him trying to find his son. Available to be talked to for a bit of a morale boost, along with you saving him from losing his mind against the other creatures in the depths of the world who would otherwise bring him down, he'll eventually accompany you into the final showdown with Lord Gwyn. Hang on a minute though. After you finally defeat the flame sword-wielding menace, Solaire phases out of existence like he has done in so many previous encounters, banished back into a different plane of existence to be summoned once again by another wandering soul. The twist this time round though is that your character has 2 choices that both bring about his destruction. You either manage to ignite the final flame, restoring light to Lordran, yourself becoming engulfed in the fire, but only for as long as your soul can burn and darkness once again consumes the land, or you walk away from such a duty to become the next Dark Lord, eventually killing Solaire in combat should someone else summon him against you. Number 6, Conker, Conker's Bad Fur Day. It's more like Conker's Bad Fur Life, as following an incredibly fun Aliens parody where Conker lamps a xenomorph around the room for a bit, the completion of the game sees him forcibly placed onto a throne, presiding over a kingdom surrounded by a wealth of people he genuinely despises. Hang on a minute though. The twist in this tale is that Conker by no means wants to take up the throne in the first place, instead lamenting the fact that his girlfriend, and the entire reason for embarking on this adventure in the first place, has been gunned down in a previous level. Now all alone and surrounded only by people he hates, with a character trait that already makes him favour alcohol to destructive levels, chances are that final shot of Conker looking down at the ground before slowly raising his eyes to the camera is a suicidal tendency if ever there was one. It also seems developers Rare had the same idea, as Conker's eventual suicide was the original ending for the game. Somewhere along the way they decided this probably wasn't such a good idea as it entirely ruled out the idea of sequels, but the remnants of that idea are still more than obvious in what was left behind. Number 5, Jason Brody, Far Cry 3. The story and themes within Far Cry 3 are fairly problematic at best. Your progression throughout is supposed to take you gracefully from unassuming frat boy into tribal warrior, cutting your teeth on the spears of a population endemic to the island itself, stopping only to level up and headshot the occasional shark for skinning and crafting purposes. Hang on a minute though, this ending shows a ship leaving the island, which you can assume Brody is on. Yet even so, the traumatic events he's been through, even if you put them down to some crazy survival-based fever dream, are still going to haunt the poor guy for years to come, most likely leading to a return to the island, or Brody going off to skin the neighbor's cat for the sake of making an arrow holster. We all know what happened to the lost castaways to make them try and return, and none of those guys had to put up with an overly friendly nipple-slipping tribe leader asking them to stab their other halves. Number 4, Violet Summer, Velvet Assassin. The potential for greatness was there in spades throughout Velvet Assassin, but as the game Chris Nolaned its own timeline all the way back up to the present, one of the worst endings ever committed to gaming played out. The developers thought it appropriate to provide many gratuitously sexualized shots of her essentially dying in a sea of flames, a particular lowlight being that for no reason whatsoever, the camera keeps cutting directly to her ass. Hang on a minute though, surely Violet can pull herself through this and avenge those who are opposing her. Well, no, actually. Being that the neighbouring village is full of people she was trying to save and they've all been torched to cinders, and she herself is suffering from a sniper's mortal bullet wound, she's only left with 2 options. Either go out guns blazing, providing she can actually summon the strength to stand, or succumb to yet more emotional blackouts due to the trauma of a miniature genocide happening right alongside her. Replay Studios were obviously going for the all hope is lost, Nazi Germany was the worst thing ever routine, and that totally would have worked had they built a strong protagonist who was then cut down in her prime, rather than some weirdly over-sexualized distressed damsel in a flimsy nightgown. It was atrocious. Number 3, Doom Guy. Although the main character of the original Doom doesn't amount to much more than a pair of arms, a love of chainsaws, and the fact that hell cannot contain him, it didn't stop thousands of people ascribing a name to the guy and a worthwhile set of characteristics all the same. Come the end of Doom 64, you'd fought thousands of waves of enemies, ranging from the inventively macabre to the downright ugly. Thus, when the final boss was defeated, Doom Guy resigns himself to stay in hell to make sure no other demons can come out. Hang on a minute though, this guy is electing to stay in hell. You know, the place where endlessly regurgitating enemies roam free, lakes of fire cascade through every chasm, and the devil himself sprinkles his lawn with acid rain? Yeah, that hell. Rather than return to the surface to find Doom Guy 2 or a fellow platoon of Marines that are also willing to go down there and do a shift pattern or something, this guy is going to be served up to the eternal hellspawn like stubbled pate on burnt toast come the following morning. Number 2, Roman Bellic, Grand Theft Auto 4. Come GTA 4's end, everything seemed to be wrapped up, save the potential for cousin Roman to die in the final mission. Yet regardless of this, Nico continues living in the city and player controllers return to you. Hang on a minute though. Regardless of your decision to unwittingly spare Roman near the end of the game, Nico's past life continues to catch up to him, and it's only a matter of time before your newfound reputation, brought about by torching all and sundry, decides to clap Roman too. And that's only if Nico doesn't do it himself, of course. Roman's constant pestering for companionship and a trip down the bowling alley every 5 minutes was enough to send any sane man round the bend, let alone an ex-Russian militant who has a constant trouser full of grenades. Number 1, the Dragonborn, Skyrim. Bethesda's all-conquering masterpiece, Skyrim proved to longtime gamers and newcomers alike that a rich world full of fresh experiences could be one of the most fun adventures you could ever undertake. Gamers journeyed far and wide to take on everything from sun-eclipsing dragons to secret vampire clans, all the while becoming stronger and more rich with a take-all-comers purpose. Hang on a minute though. Along the way, one of the biggest decisions you made was choosing to align yourself with either the Alliance or the Stormcloaks, and although there's no real righteous choice, as both are rampant with moral quandaries regardless, you've still become a symbol for the rebellion against whichever side you didn't choose. Come the end of Skyrim, you're the most well-known individual in all of Tamriel, and if the remaining thousands of enemies don't manage to drag you down once Dragon Shout becomes Dragon Wheeze, the very fact that the imbalance of factional disputes throughout the land was tipped in such a violent way in the first place means that come the next uprising, you'll have an entire hemisphere's worth of punters baying for your dragon summoning blood. So that's our list. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And are there any others that you can think of? Let us know in the comments. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram here. I'm Scott from moreculture.com, and I'll see you soon.